On Startup Central, we're now dipping into the travel business, which, as we all know, has been hit hard by the COVID crisis. The pandemic has really taken its toll on the travel and hospitality sector. But of course, one company that is trying to find its feet right now is Yatra. Yatra, of course, goes back a long way in the year 2006 when it set up shop, and it's come a long way since, including a NASDAQ listing. And more on that a little later. But for the moment, they're looking at collaborations. They are looking at offering a whole slew of services in the digital domain and not just travel services. And in the latest news that's coming in, they've struck a partnership deal with the e-commerce behemoth Amazon as well, through which we understand that Yatra's hospitality partners are going to get a range of products. So what exactly are those products, and what can we expect from this collaboration? Let's find out from co-founder and CEO of Yatra, Dhruv Shringi, joining us here on this edition of Startup Central. Great to have you with us, Dhruv, and congratulations on this collaboration that you've struck with Amazon. Tell us how it's going to play out.
Thank you, Vikram. Vikram, as you rightly pointed out, the travel and tourism industry will have a bit of a prolongated recovery. It's not going to have a V-shaped recovery. And keeping that in mind, we've tried to look at what are the other services that we can provide to our customers. And one of those is in this partnership with Amazon. So customers are of two kinds for us. It's not just only the B2C consumers who are buying directly from us, but also the partners. So in this case, for example, the over 100,000 hotels that work with Yatra.com and list on our platform. So this service and partnership with Amazon will provide special pricing and products to our hotel partners. So this will allow them to be able to aggregate their buying needs and get access to product which they otherwise A, might not have been able to get in a timely fashion, and B, get them a price point which they otherwise individually might not have been able to meet.
All right, so how does this make business sense for you in terms of the financials? If you can tell us a little bit more about this partnership, is there a revenue sharing that you're going to do over this? And how does it actually add to your top line and bottom line?
Sure, so there are multiple ways in which it adds to us. First and foremost is that it continues to drive engagement between Yatra and its hotel partners at a time when travel volumes are low. B, it enables our hotel partners to also bring down their own cost structure by getting the advantage of buying from someone like Amazon, who obviously has a tremendous amount of purchasing power. And then C, obviously there's a revenue sharing arrangement which is there, which is between Amazon and Yatra, as part of which there should be some improvement to our bottom line as well. But the key driver for this is not so much about looking at the Yatra bottom line in the immediate term. It's more about seeing how do we continue to drive engagement for our hotel partners and drive greater value to them.
So if you talk about driving engagement, it seems like we are back to brass tacks. At a certain level, we seem to be starting from scratch, as it were, even as you're trying to diversify and offer a whole bouquet of services to your existing customers in a bid to expand the client base as well. So tell me how it's likely to work for Yatra. What is the strategy now that is at work? Because you're clearly moving away from your core, which is travel services, isn't it?
Sure. So what we are looking at doing, Vikram, is expanding the bouquet of services to beyond just travel to other digital services as well. We had started this process maybe about a year back, but we did not ever think that there'll be an event like this which will accelerate the momentum so significantly. So we've looked at expense management solution as another digital platform that we've integrated within our travel services for our corporate customers. We've looked at a partnership with Upgrad, which is in the learning and development space, given that a lot of our corporate customers now are either working from home or their employees are working at reduced capacity. This is an opportunity for them to upskill the employees. And now looking at this partnership with Amazon, which is more focused towards our hospitality partners. So the idea is to try and see how do we create more digital services that can cut across the three large customer bases that we would have. One is the B2C consumer. The second is the large corporate customer base, where we are the largest corporate travel management company in India. And the third is in terms of the partners who list their travel products on the Yatra services.
You know, at a time like this, it would be very important to keep a hold on costs. And I would imagine that a certain amount of cost rationalization is also happening over at Yatra. When you're looking at these collaborations, that's one way of doing it. But I'm certain that there must be newer investments that you would need to make as well. If you can tell us about what it's going to take to drive these digital ventures, as it were.
Sure. And that's a very important aspect, Vikram, that you highlight. Obviously, it's critical to keep cost under control at this point in time. And we've had to take some tough calls with regards to our cost. We've had to let go some of our people as well. We've had to furlough others. But given that travel is still at a relatively low point, and we do have a large workforce with us, we are looking at upskilling our own employees as well to be able to sell these digital services to our partners. The idea is to do this with very little incremental cost at our end. And that's the reason also why we are focusing on digital partnerships where there is more cost maybe incurred on the engineering side in terms of integrating them within the Yatra platform. But then the physical distribution cost for these is still limited. So the idea is to do these in a manner which is fairly accretive to the Yatra bottom line.
But then how quickly do you expect travel to return? Now, there must be certain projections, certain targets that you're working with, as difficult as those may be. But considering it continues to be part of your business, what is it that you're hearing on the ground in terms of people wanting to travel even domestically to pre-COVID levels? How far away are we from that?
Sure. So travel will always remain core to Yatra. It's not a case of us saying that, travel is no longer important. From a travel recovery point of view, however, the recovery will play out differently depending on the consumer segment. So for the B2C consumer, right, someone who's traveling to meet family or traveling for leisure, we do see short-haul travel beginning to pick up. While today the capacity which has come back is roughly about 20% of pre-COVID levels, there is a much greater shift towards online consumption at this point. So our numbers would be meaningfully higher than 20% of pre-COVID levels. So we are seeing a return of consumers, and it's also natural, right? People have been stuck indoors for an extended period of time, or they've been caught up in a particular situation and they want to either get back home, visit friends and family. So we are seeing uptake beginning to happen on the domestic travel front. International is beginning to happen in the travel bubbles which have been opened up by the governments. And maybe international might have a slightly longer gestation period than domestic. That's on the aviation part. With regards to hospitality on the domestic front, the hospitality again is beginning to take off in pockets, and it's again a function of the spread of the virus. So parts of North India today are beginning to settle down, and we are beginning to see the first glimmer of demand coming up for travel within the North Indian destinations, but it's largely still driving holidays. So it's not really long haul travel which is coming back. It'll come back, I think, short haul first. And for long haul, we will need to have a vaccine in place, or at least a very reliable cure in place to see long haul travel come back. So my best guesstimate of that would be towards middle of next year.
So it's a long haul to recovery at this stage, at least that's what it seems. But in the meantime, I wanted to understand how your balance sheets are looking by way of the capital that you have and the kind of burn that you have every month. I just wanted to understand in recent times the kind of trends that you've noticed, and to be able to have your glide path ready for the next couple of years as well. How strongly placed are you, at least on the books?
See, from a balance sheet point of view, I think we're in a fairly secure spot. We've got enough capital today to last us for 3 years plus of zero revenue. So I think that is much less of a concern for us. Our key concern today is how do we begin to drive revenue back again? And in this kind of environment where there are capacity constraints, as you well know, the number of airlines operating, the number of aircrafts operating are all limited today. So in this environment of limited capacity constraint, getting revenue back up is the key challenge for us. The balance sheet aspect and the burn aspect is a less of a concern today, given that we've taken some very tough calls over the course of the past 3 to 4 months.
Would you be looking at acquisitions right now? Because like you said, you are in the mood to diversify. Collaborations is one way to do it, but also some M&A activity. If you've got sufficient capital on your balance sheet, then is that something you're considering? And if so, then which are the areas that you would concentrate most on?
So that's an interesting debate which is going on internally as well. We've been a fairly acquisitive company over the course of the last 10 odd years, and we continue to explore opportunities. They're mostly centered around digital services and products which can bolt onto the Yatra platform and fit in and are more synergistic in nature. So we wouldn't be seeing any large-scale acquisitions, but I think you'd see maybe more tuck-in acquisitions at this point in time. I think for any large-scale acquisitions to happen, one will still need to wait and watch and get more clarity on the kind of timeline that we are looking at for the travel industry itself to recover. So from our perspective, we are focused much more on the execution of the new partnerships that we've entered into. That's key for us to drive success for our partners and for ourselves. And then look at, what are the other kind of tuck-in opportunities that might exist.
Fair enough. Of course, there are challenges galore even at this point in time. I know that this is a matter under litigation, but the eBix acquisition did not go the way that you would have ideally wanted to, and that's not something we want to delve into because it's under litigation. But also the listing on the NASDAQ, there is trouble over there. So there is obviously a lot of re-strategizing that you would have to do at Yatra. So what's the thought process on taking on challenges of this kind?
It is definitely a challenging environment, Vikram. A lot of this is unprecedented for most of us. So the focus today is to try and see how do we execute on the strategy that we are laying out, which is going beyond travel. Our endeavor over the course of the next 12 months is to try and embed the non-travel services that we've launched and get them to a certain amount of critical mass over the course of the next 12 months. So that when the travel industry itself begins to recover, we are in a much better situation then, because you've got at least a baseline that you've set with the non-travel services, and then the travel services will come back on top of that. So the focus today is squarely on execution and managing our own cost.
With the NASDAQ listing a little bit on shaky ground right now, how exactly do you propose to take that on?
See, the NASDAQ listing, I wouldn't say the listing is on shaky grounds. The listing is what it is. The stock obviously, is under pressure, like all travel industry stocks have been over the course of the last maybe 6 or 4 months now. Our situation has got a bit compounded because of the eBix challenge as well, the litigation which is going on. But as I articulated, in terms of our core business and balance sheet, that's on fairly firm footing. So we are one of those, few travel companies today who have more than 3 years of runway as far as balance sheet is concerned. So that is what provides the comfort. Everything else that's happening around it will, I feel, fall into place once the execution and the numbers pick up. So that's just a matter of time. And given that, we are not looking at any vast expansion at this point in time, the capital that we have on the balance sheet is adequate for us.